back here, and Shayla's filling up a feed bucket with cereal rye right now. And let me get this turned around. So we have 1 drum of wheat and 1 drum of cereal rye. The cereal rye is supposed to be a little more drought and cold weather resistant, so I went ahead and did a mixture of both just for giggles. And what we're doing is fixing to no-till the pasture for the winter for the livestock. And I've also got some radish mix in there. I've got 20 pounds of radish seeds, and I've got some red clover, some rapeseed, and some arrowleaf clover. So about 20 pounds of clover seed and 10 pounds of rapeseed. The rapeseed was cheap, that's why I went ahead and grabbed some to help in this seed box here. Goes in this back seed box, and you set this thing almost to nothing to seed your small seed. I don't know if you can see that, how it opens up. You can see some of those old seeds in there. You set this thing almost to nothing for clover, and what it does is, let me jump down here. What it does is that rips the vegetation. This opens the disc farrow. Your wheat seed drops first, and then in behind it your small seed drops, and then your packer rolls it in. So we're going to be putting all the rapeseed and clover in here, and the rapeseed is basically just a filler for the clover. And we're only overseeding clover, not putting a crop of it down. So I'm going to try to keep it to around 2 pounds to the acre, thereabout, hopefully. It's kind of experimental time doing this, so I'm going to jump up here and have Shayla start handing me some buckets. But we had good results with doing this broadcasting last year, so hopefully, oops, there went 5 pounds of wheat. Hey, there's even some soybeans in here, so I'm sure those will come up. So let me pick up my wheat seed I'm dropping. Chickens will eat it if it gets dropped in the yard. Try not to do that again. But so as you can see, this no-till drill's pretty large for the tractor, but I'm on the lower end of what they recommend for pulling it. Alright, so we're just going to continue this. I'll probably bring you back to show you the clover. This is going to be a rigorous process until we get it all in here. But I'll bring you back to show you the clover. Alright, so 800 pounds of wheat seed and rye seed roughly. So every 100 pounds of wheat seed, I'm going to put half a bag of radish in to try to evenly mix it, because I'll have 8 times 4 will be 800 pounds. So every 4, I've only got 4 bags of these. So every 4 is a half a bag. Alright. That's probably half a bag. Hang on, let me mix these up a little bit. I'm sweaty and this no-till drill is slippery. Alright, I can definitely see some seed down in there. I'd like to have more, but that'll work. Alright, so the 2 drums and those 4 bags of turnip or radishes have filled the bin pretty much full. And as you can see, any of those little red seeds like that in there, there's another one, quite a few of them in there. Any of those little red seeds is going to be a radish. So we've got them in there. This was just bin run wheat, so hadn't been cleaned. So there's even some soybeans, which I'm sure when that sprouts a plant, the cows and goats will enjoy that. So this stuff, all the fine seed, is going to go back in here. So what I'm going to do is just try to mix all this evenly in this back bin. That's my red clover. Let's put rape seed or whatever this is. Let's go ahead and put one of those whole ones on the bottom. So that'll be kind of as I'm testing the seeder. Hopefully the less valuable stuff gives me an idea where I'm at. One of those goes a long ways in this little box. And I'll probably have Shayla ride, because if you watch these cups right here, you can actually see if they're working or not, and see if seeds are coming out of all of them. And if they're coming, and if all of them are working, then there's no problem. But some of these were plugged up pretty good. But the reason I would put radishes down is because they grow that big taproot, and that helps keep your soil compaction broke up. And that's what we're looking to do in some of these areas that don't grow as well, is help keep that soil broke up. Now my livestock stocking rate's fairly high, so whether or not they grow big enough to do that or not is yet to be seen. But if nothing else, it will just be more forage. We have a Chinese pot farm next to us. So apparently somebody wanted to break into their pot farm and steal some dope. Well, so climbed to my fence and smashed the hell out of it. And I'm just lucky they didn't cut it. I'm probably gonna put some, you know how much work we have in this fence? I'm gonna get this mowed down real good back here, and I'm gonna put some trail cameras down my back fence line. Gonna get a lot of pictures of cattle and stuff, but that pisses me off. We heard our dogs barking at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I'm not even real sure if they got anything. I'm gonna try to talk to somebody that knows English over there, but clear down the other side of the property is where they cut the fence. And yesterday, about come to think of it, yesterday in the evening, somebody was parked somewhere about right here. And I wish I'd been paying attention to the vehicle, because that'd probably be real useful. I'm sure they were planning their bull crap. But it looks like it's falling. Looks like the tire's falling. It's because the clouds are moving. That's called vertigo. Did you get vertigo?
It's just a clock.
I hope Mama gets a picture of that cut down there. All right, we're back here on the last evening with the no-till cover crop project that we're doing, and everything went really well the first night, except that 4 inches of rain came in, which you can't complain when it's raining, but it probably did. Let me turn tractor off. It probably did wash some of our seed out. At the end of the day, there's nothing you can do about that, and it's going to keep this grass around longer for the cows, so keep us out of hay season until probably late November at this point. So that's really good. That's 3 months less hay that we got to feed that we fed last year. Gives me more time to get some projects done for winter. So anyways, and what that caused today is I think maybe I drilled some of the wheat seed a little bit too deep. Especially for the radishes. Only time will tell how that turns out. So all of this right here was day one, and knowing now what I know about rain, I wish I would have waited on all of this, because this is high ground and this is all low ground. My camera's not adjusting. This is all low ground down here. And it was very wet down there. Well, you can see how I'm rutting up the field with a little bit of driving I'm doing over here. But overall, we got all the wheat and rye, cereal rye down. And I think we're going to have pretty good results using this no-till. It seemed to be very accurate, the settings by the manual. Right now, make sure it's even. How much is left?
Not very much.
So what I've been doing now is I didn't have my clover. I didn't have my clover set just right. So what I did was I went over to some of the areas I'd really like more clover to help improve the soil. And I hand tossed a bunch out into some of the more bare areas in the pasture. And then I set the seeder to about 4 times what we'd had it set to originally. And without the disc in the ground, just low enough that the seed box turns, I've been just kind of zigzagging around trying to distribute some of that clover in this area where I had it set the lowest, to try to get an even spread out here, or just to get it out so I don't waste it, leave it in the drill. But anyways, I'm looking forward to coming back and doing an update on this and seeing how well the wheat's doing. My plan is to let the cows keep this grazed off for about the next 2 weeks. And then when everything is starting to make a stand, get the cows moved all over to our friend's place up until probably about January, and then bring them back and graze it off the rest of the winter through spring. Last year, we put wheat down, and I'll have Shayla link that in the video. And we did it a little different. Actually, right now, I'm going to go over there and get our spreader and set it next to our disc and explain how we did it that way. So if you don't have access to a no-till, there's no rental in your area, or the rentals are taken up, but you have access to a broadcaster and a disc, and as far as a harrow, you can make something like we did. But anyways, there's a couple different ways you could do this, and I'm going to go show you how we did it last year real quick. All right, so with this broadcaster, that I bought off Craigslist for $100 or so, and a disc that I borrowed last year. That's how I put my wheat down. You don't have to have a bunch of fancy equipment to cover crop your pasture. So this old disc I borrowed from a friend, which I need to probably get back to him sooner than later, or get it up on some wood or something. I didn't plan on it being here this long, but this old disc, what you do is, you don't want to break the ground when you're putting a cover crop on pasture very deep. You want to go about maybe an inch, inch and a half. Just barely break the soil, turn a little bit out of the disc farrow, and then you go back behind it with that broadcaster, and you envision about an acre. This area right here that you can see in the frame is about 2 acres. So you gauge how many pounds of seed we were probably putting down last year by broadcasting 140 pounds an acre. Whereas this year, with the no-till, we could get away with as little as 100 pounds an acre, because you get a little better seed rate. But anyway, so you measure off an area roughly about 2 acres, and you say, okay, I want to put 280 pounds of seed down in that 2 acres. And then once you've driven around that place and you've evenly distributed that 280 pound of seed, you go back and you can either disc it back in, go in the other direction with the disc, or make up a drag harrow like we did. We made what we did actually was we took a piece of angle iron and we C-clamped it to the back of the disc. With the disc up in the air, we tied a bunch of chains off to the back, and then we just drug those chains. We put some chains going off this way and then some chains across this way, and we just hooked them all together, and we went driving around. And we also had Levi pulling the lawn tractor with a piece of horse panel and a piece of flat stock iron on it, and he was harrowing in, I was harrowing in. And the one thing I would say that was much better about doing the no-till was I only had to make one pass around the field. Whereas when you go to do this and broadcast it, you can plan on 3 passes minimum. And actually, last year it was really dry. We had a lot of wind come through, and when that wind came through, what it did was blew all the dirt off the seed. So we actually went around the field 4 times last year. Since it blew all that dirt off the seed, it came in and then began to start raining. So when the field was wet, I went ahead and disked it again to rebury that seed. And thank God it worked out, because we had no forage for our animals last year, and hay was extremely limited and extremely expensive. And that wheat bailed us out, kept our soil from blowing away, and provided forage all the way into about April. So it really allowed for our grass to come back up. It put a lot of organic material back in the ground, a lot of good roots to hold that soil, to decay into the soil. And this year, the idea is to just keep building that soil. We put the wheat, the rye, and the radishes together in the big box, and most of that ended up getting seeded at about 3/4 of an inch, I think, yesterday. And then today we had about 4 inches plus rain, so the soil was extremely saturated. But I had to get it all in this weekend, because the drill goes back to the conservation district tomorrow. So I had to wait till the evening and try to let some of the moisture dry up, but only so much is going to disappear. And I think today we were a little deeper inch, maybe even 1.25 inches. I'm curious to see how that's going to affect our wheat, but especially the radishes. We didn't have the clover box set quite as high a seed rate as we should have. We probably had about 3 to 5 pounds left over in the seed box, after covering everything. So then what I did was we just went and parked to grab some handfuls and just walked around sprinkling it in some of the worst areas in the pasture that needs probably the most nitrogen and organic material back into the soil. And then after that, where it was dry enough to do it, I just zigzagged back and forth until the box was empty. And luckily that was in the highest part of the pasture right out here in front of me, and it wasn't too wet there. Issues that I ran into while doing this was, like I said, a little too wet here the second day, and probably rained enough to wash out some of what I did the day before. I don't think it's going to be a big problem on most of it, but over here on this side of the property, we have a ton of water runoff through those trees where I did run the no-till through a lot of yesterday. I tried to get under those trees as much as possible, and then back around the pond. There's a lot of runoff on that side of the property, and probably I would say at least 60% of what was in those trees is probably now washed. That was the problem. And then, which is not really a problem. At the end of the day, we have to have rain, and it will put tons of moisture in the ground. This grass will keep on growing probably till close to the end of October, or stay green. The growing slows down because the daylight hours are shrinking and nighttime temperatures are dropping, but we should get at least 2 to 3 more weeks of good grass growth and then stay green until close to the end of October, and then we'll have about a month of residual to feed, so it's going to provide me a lot of essential time to get some of our winter projects done. So you can't complain about the rain. But that also, the other problem I had was from that rain, my little seed orifices on the clover box got a little wet and the seeds started to swell. So down here in the bottom, down in this bottom, was one of my only projects left only areas in the pasture left to finish today. And I got most of that bottom on the other side of that terrace down towards where the cows are. I got most of that drilled with wheat to then realize that my seed box was plugged up on the clover side. So then I had to my solution was to turn off the wheat and then crank up the seed rate for the clover, and then get back at it and start zigzagging back and forth and try to cover as much ground as possible while lifting the my neighbor's shooting his 50 BMG, but lift up the drill enough to where I wasn't cutting new farrows, but the seed boxes were still running, and put down as much clover as I could over that area. Overall, this is my first experience using a no-till, and I love it compared to the other way of doing it, but that's not to say that I wouldn't use the other method again in the future. At the end of the day, I'm happy I got it in the ground, and we'll get you updated when it's all said and done with. Like and subscribe, and thanks for watching.